When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit. What's this? What did I tell you? 88 miles per hour!
Ladies and gentlemen,
What's going on?
Welcome to what may quite possibly be my favorite episode ever
in existence.
I'm so excited for this. You have no idea. Hey, it's your boy King Ralph. I'm here with Parma Sean. We are your hosts, and ladies and gentlemen, coming to the show all the way from in time somewhere, it is Deuce X Mai-na, our special guest. Welcome.
Hello guys. Hello everyone.
How are you?
I'm great. You know, that favorite episode we'll see, but favorite pre-show production, I can absolutely believe that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So, are
was,
you a big Back
fun.
to the Future fan?
Oh yeah.
There's
probably bigger ones than me, but I'm a fan of the franchise.
Do you out of all of like the franchises, would you say that's one of your favorite ones, or do you have one that's maybe bigger than that one?
Ooh.
I mean, in terms of movie franchises, you know, I'm gonna say nothing has a big enough lead for me to say yes. So
okay,
let's go with that.
Love that.
All right.
Amazing.
Well, yes, it is. So
it's
another
an
Sunday
eight-way
afternoon
tie of movie franchises for me.
Oh, there's
Right.
so many. There's so many good
So
ones.
many, yeah, exactly.
Yes. So here we are on a Sunday afternoon. We're
Right.
chatting with our good friend Deuce X Mai-na, who
That's right.
told me that off the air, told me that you just came from the Wrestle Factory where they are having a 101 class today.
That's
Indeed.
right. Just introduced a fresh crop of recruits.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start off right in the beginning. Tell us, in your own words, who is Deuce X Mai-na?
Okay. Deuce has a complicated history, which I think will probably be parts will be revealed in time. But the sort of elevator explanation, I suppose, elevator pitch, is Deuce is a temporal fugitive recovery agent
Whoa.
from
Whoa.
the particular year that he would call his home time would be 2517.
Okay.
His certainly his hometown would be Neo Tokyo.
Okay.
Nice.
And he is for matters of compartmentalization doesn't always know everything there is to know about the past he's being sent to, or the ramifications it has in the future.
That's very fair.
But he's got a job to do, and at least for now, that being 2025, it involves trying to be the best professional wrestler he can be, and on the side of right and justice.
Wow,
I
that's
should say
a
right
lot of
and
info.
justice, not right injustice. That's
Yes, that's
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
for not that's a lot of information there. We're starting to slowly build, a profile here for Deuce.
Right.
Getting an
Now,
understanding.
I had a 6-minute promo ready to go for my first match, and they nixed
Yeah.
nice.
it. So I'm like, all
Oh,
right, well, now you get it. Now you get it in bites.
there you go.
Well, I've been seeing some of your promos online. They're very, very good. I love the whole futuristic, but like also retro vibe that you give off in your promos, especially your logo. It's very futuristic, but also very retro at the same time. I love it. It's very cool. Where did you get some of your inspirations for your character?
Well, oh boy. All right. This is one of those. Where exactly do you start this?
Oh my.
All right. I'm not gonna. I'll say that I got around 2017 or so. I got turned on to a genre of music called synthwave.
Oh,
And
okay. Right.
Wow.
and that sent me down a series of rabbit holes. Both that not simply music related. Got into lots of movies, TV, literature, and that led me to like the whole idea that there's people out there making new music that meant to be evocative of the 80s, the John Carpenter type
yes
music, of the 80s. And this is yeah, twists and turns. I had a one of my good friends that I used to live. I lived in Northern Virginia for a little while, and my very good friend Justin, shout out Justin.
Hey, hi Justin.
He wanted.
Justin.
He had aspirations to, one day train to become a wrestler. This is when Chikara was still kind of happening, and
right.
like we'd kind of fantasy book. All right, you're going to be, like here's what your character would be like in this universe. And the character that we came up for him was, very very similar kind of thing. It was like a sort of time traveling bounty hunter. Because he'd kind of gotten into the same kind of synthwave stuff around the same time, and later, fast forward here to March 2024. I'm having my first match, and I had to come up with a character for the match, and I was going to be like, here's my bar wrestling persona. And my bar wrestling persona wore primarily black and yellow. And one of the other students on that show like walked in like the next day and was like, hey, I just found these like super cool black and yellow tights on like Sears.com or whatever. And I'm like, and the thing was, he actually kind of looked like he kind of resembled a slightly smaller version of me. And I was like, this isn't gonna work. I can't. I can't come out here like So I'm like, all right, I need a plan. I need plan B. I need something else. And I was like, oh man, you know what? What if I did that? But I can't be him. I can't. That's Justin's character.
Right.
And so the wheels turned a little bit, and I was like, all right, let's deepen the lore a little bit here. Here's like, and the character of Deuce X Mai-na came into being as the partner of the original character we developed, and and with some divergences, but that was kind of like the acorn. Those are kind of the inspirations, and that's kind of the story of how he came to be.
Very cool. So let's talk about your wrestling journey and talk about how things kind of all started for you.
I'm sorry, I had another network hiccup there. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely.
All
we're
right.
having issues in the future, or we're having
Yes.
issues in the past. Who knows?
Yeah.
Explain the
Practice
basic
always
explain the basic tenets of quantum physics. That's the question. No, I'm kidding.
Shoot.
Uh,
Me Google
no.
it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No. So talk about how your wrestling journey all got started.
Okay. I was. Do you remember a Philly-based improv show, wrestling-themed improv show called Pro Mania?
I
Yes.
don't.
Okay,
Ralph
it
might.
ran for a few years.
Mhm.
Back in like the 2010ish
Right.
bout, and my another good friend of mine, Steve, shout out Steve,
What's up,
Steve?
was involved in one of these shows.
Mm.
He was performing in the show and invited me to come down and watch, which was a great show. I loved it. And got to go to the after party. And
Nice.
this is after I had like kind of gotten, Chikara had kind of gotten its hooks into me. Tim Donst was also on this show, if you remember
Oh,
him.
nice. Yes.
So I got to
took a break from working at the furniture store to come and wrestle.
yeah, hand planing, him and Daniel Day-Lewis.
Right.
But so Tim Donst was also on the show. He was the only actual wrestler, I believe, who was on the show. The rest of them were like comedians and improv types. And so I met him at the after party and just kind of like floated the idea of like, I don't know, man, like trading seems like it would be cool, but I'm not really sure if I could. And he was just like, do it. You should do it. So it took a couple of months and kind of like made the necessary preparations. And so I started actually at the Wrestle Factory in September of 2013, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
So a long time ago. I was, as I said earlier, living in Northern Virginia.
Right.
This was incredibly impractical.
Yes. Were there no gyms by you?
There probably were, but I didn't want to work for them.
Right.
I didn't want to train
Good
there.
call.
Like I like where I was as a wrestling fan at the time is instructive here. I'd enjoyed wrestling from a young age and was still following it at the time, but it had kind of gotten into this stale period around then to me, where like everybody's wrestling under a real name, maybe not their real name, but it was like a real name. You're wearing like, whatever tights. You're all kind of like looking vaguely MMA-ish. And it wasn't bad necessarily, but it just wasn't very gripping. And then one day, I'm at my desk job, and Steve just sends me like a link to the Ultra Mantis Black promo on YouTube, and I was like, "What is this?" And like that was the first moment when I realized that like wrestling could be something else, that it could be something that was just like super over the top, fantastical villains and heroes and like, finally cool. This is something I can get into. So then and I was like, yeah, I don't want to go like trained Ring of Honor. I don't want to do that. But like the idea of like one day being able to like be a character in this universe is hugely appealing to me.
Yeah.
And so that's where that happened. It was pretty brutal, like I said. The beginner classes were on Thursday nights at the time, so I would leave my job in Northern Virginia a little early, and then I would drive directly to the school, and I would train, and then I would stay with a friend in the area, and then wake up at like 4 a.m. and drive directly back to work.
Jeez.
And I did this every week.
Wow.
I was insane, man. I don't know how I could. The idea that I could do that today is absolutely alien.
Yeah.
How long was that drive?
I was driven about 3.5 hours.
Oh man, I mean that's not terrible, but still, it's
a lot for that, and it's a lot to bookend with 2 full work days.
Right,
Ooh,
right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's the crazy part.
But now Thursdays are for pro wrestling workout, which is also a big thing that they do over at the Wrestle Factory.
Excellent.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how that came about and how that formed?
That is
And
how I
when that
kind of
started?
re-entered. Yeah, that's kind of how I re-entered wrestling because I was in through I trained there for a while. I had some injuries. The school actually like briefly kind of like had some relocations and temporary shutterings, but I stayed associated with it until about late 2016, early 2017, and then kind of like real life got in the way, and real life continued to be in the way until I moved back to the Lehigh Valley. I grew up here.
Nice.
So I moved back to Lehigh Valley just before COVID. That was either good timing or terrible timing, depending on how
Right.
you look at it.
Sure.
And I'd say it was about 2 years ago now that I was like, you know what? While my tendons still work, maybe
Right.
I had seen that like the Wrestle Factory had relocated to Copley, Pennsylvania, which 20 minutes.
Bustling metropolis of Copley.
Right.
It is a city. It is a city by the sea. Go and visit beautiful Copley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Plenty of parking.
A 20-minute drive for me, that's so much better than it used to be.
Oh, absolutely. Going from 3.5 hours to 20 minutes is like a
Yeah.
a dream.
I felt like it was a karmic loan paying off. And so I was like, yeah, what's the best way for me to kind of like dip my toe back into this? And I heard about this like pro wrestling workout thing. I was like, okay, it's just like a lot of fundamentals and just general like stuff meant to build your physical conditioning. That seems like a great way to get back into it. And so I just did that for I don't know what it was, maybe 6 months, 8 months or something like that. And it was a perfect kind of way to help me learn what my limits were, what I was prepared to do next. Just in general, I'd absolutely advertise completely 100% like the best way to find out if like this is for you. And it's very like one of the problems I had when I went to train initially back in 2013 was like, here's how it works. You are going to put down this 4-digit numbers amount of money and hope it works out for you.
Right.
Like, oh yeah.
And that's daunting. That is daunting for a lot of people, especially in this economic climate with these eggs and their prices.
It's ridiculous. Listen, we were at Giant the other day and there was a pack of eggs. It was 2.5 dozen for almost $16.
Woo!
That is highway robbery. I mean,
absurd.
Even the chickens wouldn't charge that much. Ridiculous.
And this is what drives people to veganism today, not method acting an Ultramantis Black Halloween costume like it was in my day.
Right.
Yeah. Oh boy.
But where was I? Oh, yes. First class of pro wrestling workout is free for anybody who comes. And then if you want to like start doing that on a weekly basis, the prices are very reasonable. It scales kind of like rent at an apartment, but all of them are eminently reasonable. Coach Danny and Coach Josh, who run the thing, are they were excellent people to kind of help me get back into it and continue my training today. I absolutely recommend this to anybody in the area who is interested in giving wrestling a try.
Absolutely. Even he was there. Even
yes,
this guy was there.
Yes.
Big shout out to Coach Danny and the good folks that I got to hang out with at
Pro
wrestling workout. It's so much fun. I see somebody I recognize down in the front there, and oddly enough, in black and yellow tights.
Oddly enough,
talking
in black
about
and yellow pants.
Yeah. I was in Pittsburgh recently, and they have a store dedicated to leggings, and they were having a half-off sale.
Well, and as you can see, not only am I holding a championship belt, we're all giving the thumbs up.
Yes.
Yes. So I can attest to the fact that pro wrestling workout seriously it's an amazing place because every level of person that was there was treated with respect no matter what they could do. And but the thing about it is you saw everybody at every level give effort. And I think that's an important thing because you go to something like that and I mean, I didn't see Coach Ralph, but Coach Danny was there, and Danny is an amazing coach. Just the level of encouragement and the fact that he really gets in there and gets hands on with the students. Like it's really a cool thing for people to do. If you're in wrestling already, if you're not, you want to try it out, you want to see what it's like. I mean, I've not seen a better place than that to go and find out if it's really for you.
I mean, I don't really have much experience elsewhere, but all I can say is that it has been an unequivocally positive experience for me, and it worked for me. And to speak a little bit more about the coaches, they like, and how they are very welcoming to all different levels for pro wrestling workout, because they have a very good sense of when to apply positive and negative reinforcement. I've found,
Right,
like they're really great at encouraging you to do like the best you can, and then once you've got to the point where you're like feeling pretty good, then they're like, all right, here's how you improve like what you're doing. Here's here's some like little persistent perhaps mistakes in your technique that you can fix. Like I remember like the first, and you kind of got to like maybe I would definitely go looking for the negative reinforcement perhaps before they were going to give it to me, because I was impatient.
Right.
I was like,
tell me what I'm doing wrong. And
how's my footwork looking on the ropes, coach?
Yes, tell me how bad I suck. Please hurry.
Please tell me now.
What notes this week? Stop bothering me. Okay, note taken. Gotcha.
Was it interesting for you seeing Coach Ralph in a trainer role, knowing that you knew him in his previous Chikara days?
I guess it was different, but it wasn't really surprising, because he kind of always had a very friendly and welcoming demeanor, to me. Like this obviously not Oleg, but
yeah,
no, not Oleg.
Well, now listen, when everybody stood at the back of the Wrestle Factory when all the fans were walking out, he was a joy and a pleasure to greet.
Yes. I mean, that's
very cool.
It didn't surprise me to learn like, okay, he's training now. Like, of course, it's like he's got a lot of the temperamental and mental tools, and obviously the experience to do it. There's quite a lot of wrestlers out there who may be more experienced, who perhaps maybe like have I don't know, more of like a technical ability, and they have absolutely none of the rest of the many tools that you need to be an effective coach.
Right.
And this why I think both he and Danny, and they're not exactly the same.
No.
They're a little bit. I don't even know what a good analogy of it is, but like they work very well together.
During holiday hangout, we were all there, and we got to stand and watch with Coach Ralph and Coach Danny, and both of them in their own ways.
You want to talk about an opinion city?
Yeah.
Listen,
oh my God,
man, Danny is like an encyclopedia of knowledge about what he's watching in front of him. Like I've never seen anybody dissect it the way he did. It both good and bad. It was very interesting to be able to stand there and listen to him.
But so you had Danny on one side, like critiquing all the moves, then you had Oleg on the other side critiquing all the crowd chants. That crowd chant was lame. What's that chant about?
Yeah.
Stop doing that chant.
I wish they'd never do that chant again. He hates when it's a 2 count and the crowd yells 2. He hates
that.
But on that night though, somebody came into the building and kind of stole the show, and yelling 2 turned into yelling Deuce.
Yes, that became the running joke of the night. How did that feel?
Did he criticize that?
No, he was involved.
They were trying to make that happen.
Yeah.
They were trying to make that happen.
Yeah, they were all for it.
They were actively trying to make Deuce the chant, which ended up becoming the chant of the night. How did that feel for you?
Yeah.
I didn't find out about this until well after the show had concluded.
That'll be a fun watch back.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I'm probably gonna just cringe. In a good way, I guess. It's a pretty cool thing to have.
You see in the video,
Oh,
us in the
yeah.
corner going Deuce.
Yeah,
Deuce.
we're just.
I mean, I
throwing
saw
it
you guys
down.
when I was in the room. I saw you.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Oh yeah.
You know, however briefly.
Right.
Unfortunately, I love that room. The only downside I have found as a performer, so first world problems, but is there's not really a good way to bird the matches that you're not in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of like, ugh, hope it's going well.
Right.
If
Yeah,
it's not, I
it's
won't find out for a long time because it's like it's a long and
Yeah.
winding
Right.
staircase down to the dressing room.
Right.
Yes. So talking about Deuce a little bit, where did the idea come up for the glasses and giving out I mean, are you a Bret Hart fan that you were like giving away the glasses? Because I think that's a very cool thing that you do.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have like hugely I don't feel terribly strongly about Bret Hart.
Okay.
I'm a little I generally it's a little hard to talk about Bret Hart in this day and age um because of how much like outside of the ring stuff he's super free with his opinions.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
More opinionated guys. Why you guys call this again? But uh
Yeah.
so and I don't agree with a lot of the opinions that Bret Hart shares, but I mean, I was a kid in '95, and I certainly liked him then, so he was doing something
Mhm.
right, knows a thing or
Sure.
two.
Right. Right. Of course.
And one of the guys I'm very grateful to for kind of helping me along in my journey of wrestling. I'm gonna like set a record for shout outs on this.
Ooh.
So Kevin Condren, you may remember from
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin
Hi,
Condren.
Kevin.
Listen,
Hey.
so shout out to
Kevin,
him.
wait, if you're watching, you call us.
Yes. Yes.
We have your number and you have our number. Call us.
Right. Right.
He's somebody who was very, very instrumental and still is actually in developing me as a wrestling performer.
Very
But
cool.
I remember once I'm not sure if he ever actually did it or not, but at some point during like the Kevin Condren character arc, he
Right.
had an idea of I think it was like having like wearing a cape I think it was a cape to the
Okay.
ring and then like giving it to a kid who was like
Oh,
at
okay.
ringside.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
remember him like backstage talking through this idea and I was like, that's really, really good. And he
Yeah.
specifically was like, I'm do the Bret Hart, baby.
Yeah.
And so, when the time came for me to build my own character, I was like, I think that's a pretty cool thing to borrow.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Especially given that I was like, all right, you're gonna be a good guy. So and I don't know like how everybody who like when they first break into wrestling probably thinks as I did, like, oh, well, being a heel's more fun and it's probably
Right.
also easier like nowadays. But such was the decision of the booking office, and I did what I was told, and then and it seemed to be like a very good, crutch perhaps, but I certainly have a lot of fun with it, and the audience has a lot of fun with it. There was at the last, the previous Royalty Wrestling show. It's funny because these are actually like I saw Kendrick Hyde's appearance here, and she was talking about these little girls that were like in the front row. So they got a lot of attention at this show because I gave one of them my glass in that one, and I
Nice.
still like to go back from time to time and look at like the reaction she had because it really just warmed my heart. And I'm like, man,
Nice.
this is it's so cool to like get to have a hand in shaping someone's enthusiasm for this art at that age.
Now, this may be surprising or not, but she is now our second highest video watched on our channel.
I don't. Yeah.
Second highest video.
The video
Second
blew
highest
up.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But,
I'm not super surprised.
And well, no, what's funny is that when we met up with Danny at How to Hang Out, he goes, so you asked the one girl that's only had 10 matches, and I'm a 14-year veteran.
Yeah, he was a little
There
too
is
quick that night.
absolutely nobody more
was-
on brand to
very-
have on the podcast of this name
Right.
than Coach Danny.
Yes,
Absolutely no one.
Well, I did mention that to him Thursday night, so we're actively working to get him on the
Working
show.
on getting him on.
I have
Yeah.
set
Now,
all my
you had-
like devices to do not disturb,
Mhm.
and which might be the only thing preventing him from like having a phone call run in.
We have had that too. We had Matt Hardy call in mid-episode. The one
Really?
day. Yeah, we had on John Alba for our 1-year anniversary.
And he does the
show
Extreme
with
Life of Matt Hardy with
and
Matt
Okay.
Hardy. Yeah.
while we were chatting with him midway, he gets a phone call from Matt Hardy, and he answers it. It's like, "Hey, I'm doing this podcast. It's their 1-year anniversary. Do everything that you want to say." And he says, "Congratulations, thank you, all this crazy stuff." Like, we're like, "This, how does that happen?" So,
Magical.
What was funny about the whole thing is that he was like, "I'd love to be there with you guys, but I'm on a plane flying to Syracuse," and that was the night that he surprise came back to TNA.
right? Yeah.
So like it was crazy that
Crazy coincidences happened that day.
Oh yeah, it was
But-
something.
So you had mentioned earlier.
Look at you
growing
guys.
up-
Yeah, well,
yeah.
we're minor celebrities here, maybe.
Right, we're minor.
Stumbling into
yeah.
history.
Listen, yeah, that's it's what we
But-
do.
Speaking of history, you did mention growing up 95 as a kid, Bret Hart. What was your first or your earliest pro wrestling memory growing up?
So I do have like vague memories of watching wrestling before this, but the
Mhm.
the earliest tangible memory that I have is WrestleMania 5.
Oh, okay.
The Mega Powers explode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So I had one of the kids in the neighborhood comes, like, I guess, Sunday night, this must have been, comes up and like knocks on the door and is like, "Hey, so-and-so 2 blocks from here got WrestleMania on pay-per-view. We're all going over to there to watch." So like 15 of us, like little kids,
Nice.
crammed into his living room. I only remember watching the main event, and I remember not being there that long. So I must have got there like just for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I must have known who Hulk Hogan was. I mean, everybody did.
Right.
But I didn't.
course.
I know I didn't really have a whole lot of opportunity to watch that much wrestling, and all I remember is that I was definitely hard in the tank for Macho to win that match.
Nice. Yes.
I was not.
Wow.
I was not on the. I was not on the Hogan train.
Right.
Even at that age.
Wow.
But that's the earliest one.
Gotcha.
It's funny because we were live streaming during Saturday night's main event last night,
Yes.
and Sean asked me what the first pay-per-view I'd ever seen, and it was WrestleMania 5.
Hey.
Yeah, look at that.
Like
And,
that.
yeah, it's funny because we talk about like long-term storytelling now, and like
Mhm.
everybody holds the bloodline as like the watermark for long-term storytelling,
Right.
but people don't realize that Macho Hogan feud, the long-term storytelling in that was amazing. And back then you only had a couple pay-per-views a year.
Yeah.
So
Right.
like you had a big chunk of time between pay-per-views. So they really took their time and built that feud out.
It's true. I don't even remember like there was like how long did that arc really go? Was it like 2 years?
Well, it kind of, yeah, they were together at WrestleMania 4.
Mhm.
They fought at WrestleMania 5. I think by WrestleMania 6, I think he was he Macho King at that point?
I think he was.
Yeah, I think he
Macho King
was.
at that point.
I think he was the Macho King at that point. But there was always like this there was always this rivalry between them.
Yeah.
They always kind of, and it was, obviously he was focusing on other things,
Mhm.
with the Macho King run, but there was always kind of this, beef between them, it seemed, running. But then, by WrestleMania 7, he's back to being a good guy again. And, so, but the Hogan Macho Man beef, I mean, that continued all the way to WCW. Like because they
Oh,
just,
sure.
they just legitimately did not like each other. It was,
Oh, but
they were
whose
not.
side is he on? I'll tell you whose side. He's on.
Yeah.
Anybody serious?
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Oh, it only works for me if I get to drop the boot on Macho, brother.
Yeah.
So
So
let's talk about your big match coming up. Royalty Wrestling. You against Bear in Mind in a now announced submission match. Are you a master submission specialist?
Ooh, good question.
This is something that I've had some stuff in my toolbox that I haven't had any reason to break out yet. Even considering that, however, I know that Bear in Mind is a technical master. I've done my research on this guy.
Sure.
And I'm aware of his origins and his training pedigree. So I have to. I mean, I know what I have, and I know that it's not sufficient yet. I still got some time, and I've been working on it. But it's definitely going to require going to places that Deuce hasn't gone yet. It's going to be for sure a pretty big test. Submission matches are very different than any other kind.
Oh yeah,
sure.
The kind of the way that you approach those just tactically and strategically is very different. So it's been a lot of like trying to do, not just research into my opponent, but into the history of submission matches, trying to figure out like how I need to change my approach to these things in terms of my opponent, in terms of my training, everything. And it's very challenging, but fascinating. I'll say that much. It sent me down some roads that I probably otherwise wouldn't have gone down. And if nothing else, it's a great opportunity to learn new things. That's sometimes like first of all, you should never ever stop learning.
Of course not. Never.
But sometimes even though that's like my goal, you sometimes may feel lost in terms of like, I'm not sure what I should be trying to learn.
Yeah.
So when I look at this as an opportunity, to be like, all right, you have just got full speed ahead. Learn. Here's everything you're going to be learning about between now and February 15th.
And it's a huge opportunity because you're vying for the Holy Grail of Roy Twist.
Oh,
It's the big prize.
First step on the way.
Prize. Yes. Yeah. The Holy Grail.
That's right. And have you seen the tournament bracket?
I have seen some.
I'm not sure if they've made I don't know if they've made like a graphic for this or anything.
I don't think there's a graphic for the bracket, but I do know that it's you versus Bear in Mind. There's the recently announced Capture the Flag match, which I'm so excited to see happen live.
Yeah. First time anywhere in wrestling, as far as any of us are aware.
I've scoured Cage Match and I didn't see anything.
When Coach Ralph announced it, me and Ralph were like, "This is going to be amazing! I can't wait."
Oh yeah.
This sounds so awesome and so absurd, but also literally hasn't happened, I think, ever, like you said, in any wrestling show ever. I just love this whole medieval vibe of royalty wrestling. It just seems so different from anything that I've ever seen before, live or in person, like, or on TV. Like, it's just so different. I'm so excited to see that play out.
Yeah, this kind of like goes back to, that day years ago when I saw that Ultramantis promo and was like, oh man, it could be this. And to a lesser extent, that's kind of what's going on here. It's like, here's something that's like just like so much fun. It's a different kind of experience, I think, than any other promotion that I've seen. And disclaimer, I haven't seen that many. But I think that we do a great job at Royalty of having very dynamic shows in terms of like each match is different from the next. It's just such like you get a different flavor of wrestling the whole way through. And this Chivalry is Dead on the 15th is just going to be the third show we've ever had.
Yeah.
So I don't even think we've really found our footing yet, but I'm still very proud of the product that we've all been able to put forward.
Yeah, talking to Coach Ralph, I know that there's a lot of things that they're looking to do with this, a lot of, you know, big plans for this going forward. Do you feel like maybe, you know, what they're doing with Royalty Wrestling is kind of bringing back almost the creative spirit of what was going on in Chikara, as far as, you know, storytelling and things like that, you know, just having a unique company that does things like that?
I think there's definitely it's got a lot of like spiritual succession there.
Right.
As for, I mean, if you're asking, one of the defining characteristics of Chikara is how like the story really never broke. It was
Right.
it was like
was
a Marvel
all-
comic or
everything
something.
was
Like, here's
important.
episode here, issue 336,
Mhm.
and we're going to refer to everything, which is
Right.
Oh, yeah.
really, really cool. One of the challenges, of course, though, is that like, all right, you want to break in a new fan. All right,
Ooh.
well, here's everything you need to know. You know,
Right.
3 hours later. I
Yes.
actually
Right.
did have a night where I tried to catch somebody up on the current Chikara storyline, and it took me like 2.5 hours, and I
Jesus.
passed out in
Yeah.
the middle of the story. Like,
Oh,
that's
yeah. It's
in a way that's cool, but I think I don't know. Fortunately, we're only 3 shows in, so
easy to
not all
catch
that
up.
much. That
Yeah.
all that much goes. But I like it when you take care in crafting a narrative, and making events matter, and getting, and that's the kind of thing that gets people invested and to care about characters.
Absolutely.
It makes it keeps your fans.
Mhm. Oh,
It
yeah.
helps make new ones. We'll see if we're fortunate enough to have the problem of like, what are we going to do? This is our 9th year of existence, and
Right.
we're gonna have like, that's a great problem to have. Should
I
should
mean,
come to that.
with this concept though, like we had mentioned it during his episode, that there can be so many opportunities where, like, if you wanted to, you can have one of those shows at a Ren fair, and it would make sense.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
of the theme of Road to Wrestling. You can have it at a Ren, and people would flock and watch that at the Ren fair. They would go to it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's right up their alley. Like,
Absolutely.
I think that would be a huge opportunity if that could be a possibility. Is that would be huge to bring two different like worlds together.
I have not been to the Pennsylvania Ren Fair, but I actually have gone to the Maryland Ren Fair quite a few times, which is a really cool thing. And they don't have even anything like, they have jousting and all that stuff.
Of course, right.
I think it would be a really cool idea if there'd be a way to like set up a ring that wouldn't, break the necessary period conventions.
Right, of course.
Sure.
And I mean, I always imagine like, so like Deuce in Royalty Wrestling, one of the sort of I guess comparisons to his situation there, and which would be the same were we ever to like perform at a Renaissance fair, would be like Bruce Campbell's Ash in Army of Darkness.
Yes. Perfect.
and if like, and I have noticed that like at Renaissance fairs, there's occasionally some dude wandering around as the 10th Doctor or something.
Right.
I'm like, all right, I get it.
People pretending they're Star Trek characters and they come back in time.
Yeah, we've fantasy booked your idyllic Renaissance Wonderland into our story, and I'm like, all right, yes, and okay, but I would have a lot of fun being like, all right, without like, Deuce wouldn't have to make any kind of like character changes. There just need to be some aesthetic changes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That I think would allow him to like fit right in.
Yeah.
It's like when Doc Brown goes back to the 1800s.
There you go.
Bingo.
Just like that. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
But that crowd would be insanely hot.
That's what I'm saying. It would be insane.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that would be so much fun.
My other, like, this is like brief non sequitur, like my other like that, the LVAC crowds. And you ever go to a kaiju big battle show?
No, but I so
Oh, we wanna
badly
go
want
so
to.
bad.
Yes,
So
we've
bad.
talked about it.
So here like it was not my first time ever getting to like perform in a wrestling context, but during my first stint as a student at the Wrestle Factory, um Chikara had kind of like a working relationship with kaiju at the
Yep.
time.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we we helped them out with a show in Hell's Kitchen
Okay.
once.
Okay.
And
Oh.
I got stuffed into a suit, and I was very surprised by like what that was. We were in this like Hell's Kitchen nightclub. It was like, super fancy, and there was, like a mezzanine and stuff, and like, the kinds of people who could like afford to be there start showing up, and I was just like, are these people really going to go for this? Man, they went for it.
Yeah.
It was, I was just, I was mobbed up. It was crazy. And I think that getting to perform in front of a Ren Fair would be just bonkers. I would love to do that.
Oh, it would be very cool. So, let's talk a little bit about, what kind of goals are you looking for as far as maybe 2025 things maybe you want to do in the wrestling world?
I've been moving the goalposts pretty much since I started training. The first goal I had was have a match in front of people who paid to be there that I don't know.
Well, there you go. That's a start.
Right?
Sure.
So
I like it.
I crossed that one off.
Yep.
In last March, and I was like, okay, well, now what? What next? And I think my next goal after that was like, I'd like to get to the point where I can be on one of the LVAC shows. So, as you know, cross that one off this past December.
Check.
I like, as I mentioned, my sort of the sort of origin that brought me back into wrestling and ultimately led me to train involved a fascination with Ultramantis Black. I think it would be a really cool little bookend, I guess, to get to have a match with him, even if it was like, a Cybernetico.
Right.
I'm like part of like a 16-man tag situation. Even just being in the same match with him would be really, really cool. And honestly, like, I've just been kind of taking it one goal at a time, like, because I kind of feel like I'm on house money as it is.
Right.
And so, like, hey, you know what? We get the next one done, then I'll think about what might come after that. But I would say that's probably the goal. But that was actually before, royalty got started. It never really occurred to me that, like, it's perhaps, as much, if not more, kind of rewarding to be able to have a hand in like helping a brand new promotion get started.
Yeah.
And one that, although LVAC, I think, I mentioned, like, Chikara's spiritual successor earlier, in many ways, I think LVAC kind of picked that up.
Yeah.
But there are some elements of it, like particularly the style of storytelling and narrative, and character building, that LVAC, for reasons outside of their control, maybe can't do.
Right.
But that royalty may have the ability to do. And if we could recapture that, and if I could have had a part in helping that happen, from the get-go, years into the future, further into the future, I will probably look back and may regard that as being like the best thing I did.
Right. There you go. Now, mentioning Ultramantis Black real quick, you were around during what they had called the secret season, when he was just kind of champion at the start of it. What was your thoughts about all of that and about the secret season of Chikara?
Give me a little bit more here. Are you talking
So
about that one, the like all the wrestling is stuff?
it was season, I believe it was season 18, and it was a season that they taped in secret, like at the end of the year, and nobody knew anything about it. And then at the show before it was announced that they had a secret season, Ultramanus came out at the end and he was wearing the grand championship and nobody could figure out why. And then it was revealed on their I think on the website that it was revealed that there was a secret season that they taped that nobody knew anything about.
I'm looking up to see when. Okay. I had gotten, because I vaguely remember this, but I was like, I should remember this better.
Right.
This was just after I had to temporarily depart from my active involvement. So I just missed this part. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, it sounds like it really picked up from there.
Well,
yeah, it was very interesting.
It was very different, but also like we've asked a lot of people about the secret season, and it's it was a very divisive season, to put it that way. Like a lot of people thought it was cool and different. A lot of people were like, none of this makes sense. We don't know what's going on. Like
I recall that the vast majority of what Chikara did from about 2012 on could be defined as divisive.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair
enough. All right.
They're you know, more opinions. Yes. There was lots of opinions. But you know what's weird is that like it was 2013. I remember when I made the decision, like there was Tim Donst telling me like, hey, you can do it and you should do it, which was probably the main thing that got me to actually do it. But one of the things that was potentially holding me back, I remember this now that I'm talking about it, was I was having so much fun being a fan, you know, like I said, like it was such a great, like a great treat, such a rare bird, like this wrestling promotion that told stories in this way. And I was like, you know, I do this and I'm just going to like go through that curtain and there's probably no way I'll ever be able to like put the toothpaste back in the tube. I will probably never be able to enjoy this the same way again. And that was, and I don't regret the decision at all, but that was true. And it made it harder for me, I guess, to like be able to appreciate a lot of these like twists and turns of the story the way that a fan would. I still got to though, like I got to see the fans enjoy it though, and I got to see them, you know, discuss it and debate it and argue about it, and engage over it, and I don't know, maybe that was like cooler than having experienced it myself. I don't know, but like I said, no regrets.
No.
So one of the, you know, speaking of things being really divisive, one of the more divisive things was the Challenge of the Immortals season.
Yes.
Were you a fan of that?
I was the stage manager.
Oh, okay.
That's mostly what I did for those couple of years. I was I mean, like, you know, ring crew captain, but it also kind of like metastasized into sort of being what other forms of performance art would call a stage manager. And again, I'm just like, I don't know, was it good? I couldn't say. I was kind of too busy trying to make sure it all worked.
Right. You were in the you were out there in the weeds. You were not worried about if you were just like, let me just get this show done.
I'll say this, that it was for sure one of the most ambitious things that I've ever seen done. I know that there was just an awful lot of like non-Euclidean geometry and spreadsheets and bistro-mathics and God knows what else, what other kinds of computational acts that went into making sure that all of the teams had the like the necessary matches with each other over the course of like a 9-month season. I don't know if to this day how he did it, because it isn't just about like scheduling it. It's like, are these guys all available for these dates?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, but he stuck the landing. Was it, the Russian judge didn't score it very well, but I mean, I don't know. I was just impressed at like the feat of having put it on at all. And it was, like I said, maybe a little harder for me to really understand it from the perspective of a fan.
I was always pro Challenge of the Immortals. I thought it was really fun. I thought it gave us a lot of fun things, and of course, my favorite, which it gets a thumbs up from me just for this, but giving us Crowning Court versus the Gentleman's Club was just magic. Absolute magic.
Well, people I mean, one thing I'm not sure if people really, how much like people cared, or if they did, what they thought of the whole scoring system and the sort of like the sort of pro sports aspect, but they loved the teams. That's for sure. And you're right. Like there was like maybe no two more than that. Gentlemen's Club finally having an excuse to conspire regularly in Chicago programming.
And so we were talking about the building the stories and everything that Chikara did, and it was almost like nothing ever happened that wasn't like paid off somewhere. Except for one thing. I don't think they ever paid off.
One thing.
I don't think we ever definitively find out who gave Mr. Touchdown the loaded elbow pad. I mean, there was insinuation that it was a certain
reveal.
Ecuadorian aristocrat, but we never really get the full. We never really get the evidence that it was him or someone else.
You honestly probably have the closest relationship with him out of anybody. Did you ever ask him?
I do. No, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to make insinuations. Because I know he's a man of honor. I've told this one story on here before, but since you're here, I'll tell it again quickly. I live in Pennsylvania near the Lehigh Valley, so. We go to Music Fest regularly every year. And so we go to this Boys to Men concert because my wife really wants to see Boys to Men. And I'm not opposed to it because I liked their music back in the day. So we go to this Boys to Men concert and I say to her, do you want to look at the merchandise? And she's like, no, let's just go in and get our seats. So we go in and get our seats, and we come back out after the show's over, and as we're leaving, I said, are you sure you don't want to look at the merch? She's like, okay, let's go over. So we get in line and we're standing there and we're just kind of, chatting away while we're waiting. And I get this tap on my shoulder and I turn around and here it's Juan. He saw me from like way over the other side and came over to say hello. And I was like, that is a moment that I will never forget.
Pretty cool when you see him in the wild.
Indeed. Indeed. It was very fun, but that was there's no way to ever. I don't think there's any way to ever really truly explain how special that time in Chikara was. Like even from a fan standpoint, like it was different than anything else. It was just special, and there's companies I think will get close to that, and I think companies will build fan bases that have the loyalty that the fans at Chikara did, but that feeling and that special time, it's hard to duplicate that.
Can't be. But I mean, like you said, the kind of like the drive to pass those kinds of like experiences on. We'll never be able to make people feel the same way, but we might be able to use that to make them feel something else. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. New experiences. Absolutely. All right. So that's going to bring us to our final question of the interview. Sean, why don't you take it away?
I will. So What does pro wrestling mean to you, Deuce, and what is the significance that it has had on your life?
Okay. Well, individually, for me, I would. It's been pretty huge. I think wrestling has given me an the impetus to take care of myself mentally and physically. Like physically, it's obvious. Like you don't want to be you want to be in good shape. Like you're either going to end up like half naked in front of untold numbers of strangers. You're going to be in like a some kind of like tight fitting suit. So you want to look
Mm-hmm.
good. But more than
Mhm.
that, you need to be strong. You need to have like a degree of agility,
Mm.
both so that you can have greater access to like moves and maneuvers, each of which is a paintbrush, crayon, color of paint, a
Mm-hmm.
vocabulary. These are the things that allow you to be able to tell different kinds of stories, um, and even more than that, then the most important thing is that this is how you keep yourself safe, and this is how you keep your
Mm.
opponent safe.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these things kind of come together to like have like helped me live a much just healthier life physically.
Mm.
And then you get the whole aspect of the how important it's been for me mentally as um, a an outlet for creative expression, and also for community and fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
I've become very close with the trainers and my fellow students at the factory. But even now, as I'm starting to, like LVAC and uh, perhaps get some other appearances elsewhere, will maybe
Mhm.
start to create like important connections with people,
Mm-hmm.
even beyond that. So I cannot overstate how important it has been positively for me.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Very, very good answer. All right. Well, that is going to bring us to our main event top five.
Yeah.
And as I
Mm.
understand it, Coach Danny, if you are watching this, you will not be happy. If I'm remembering correctly, this should anger Coach Danny.
this,
I don't know if he's watching, but I did just take my stuff off of Do Not Disturb, so we'll see if he calls.
this
Okay.
this may or may not also be the grand heel turn of one Deuce X
Ooh,
Maki-na.
oh boy.
Yeah, I was thinking about like I told you guys what it was going to be, and
Yep.
then
Mhm.
I thought about it. I was like, it's possible that this might generate way more heat than any of the wrestling conversation. I don't know.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Do you guys announce it, or do I tell you what it is?
So
Oh, yeah.
no, we are going to discuss and possibly get some hot takes on top 5 original video game soundtracks.
You are
Mhm.
correct.
Now, you had
Wow.
mentioned you have a bunch of disclaimers before we start.
I have some
Oh boy.
disclaimers. Yes, this is largely to help me actually get a list of 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, because here's I have a couple of like general categories of games that I didn't consider.
Okay.
There's 8 and 16-bit games. Are those soundtracks are very near and dear to my heart. Like I think 8-bit game soundtracks are amazing, some of them, for what
Mm-hmm.
these composers were able to do with
Mhm.
huge limitations.
Yeah.
And I could talk about that for another hour and a half. But given that, like, I kind of feel like they need to be considered on their own based on what I'm going to
Right.
Mhm.
talk about.
Sure.
So that's kind of
Sure.
like in their
They're
own
out.
thing.
They're out.
I've also, yeah, not to be considered. Um, uh, games that are more scored than soundtracked, like that they have like just kind of like an orchestral accompaniment, like your Halos, your
Right.
Calls of Duty,
Mhm.
and sort of like Sayonara Wild Hearts, if you're familiar with that one, which is just like, we're
Mhm.
gonna take like the collected works of Claude Debussy and make a rhythm game around it. I'm like, that's
Right.
a cool idea, but I don't know. It just didn't seem like it.
Not for this list.
It's great, but yeah, just didn't seem right.
Out.
And also some other games that are more compilations of existing music than they
Mhm.
are music that is written for them. So in this category, I would have like Hotline Miami, which
Oh,
would
yeah.
be which
Yeah.
would be maybe like I would have absolutely had it in the top 5 if not for that, because remember I told you earlier about how like synthwave got into synthwave in 2017 because
Yep.
of Hotline Miami.
There you go.
That's really where like, you know, the acorn that created Deuce came from.
Mhm.
Right.
But also like, you know, GTA, the later GTA games, and Cyberpunk 2077, which if you have played it recently after they have, you know, put out the 3 million bug fixes,
Yeah.
is just an outstanding game. I love that game so much.
Hmm.
But, you know, and there are some original songs written for that one, but a lot of it is not. So again, not considered.
Not out.
Now-
you're gone.
So-
You did message me earlier, and you told me that you were not going to consider any farming, tractor trailer, or bus driving simulators for this list either. Just saying.
Yeah, I like, or goat simulations.
Right. Yeah, that would
Well,
right.
listen, you know, goat simulations deserve their own category for many things.
Exactly.
The truth is that I like to curate my own playlist for simulations. So I've actually
Oh.
never even listened to
Ah,
the
There you
go.
original soundtracks
There
of
you
these
go.
games.
Okay, there you have it.
Okay. So
Here
with
we
all
go.
that out of the
Oh,
way,
boy. Danny, get ready.
the criteria that I kind of put into this is, I think like the best original video game soundtracks. One, there's something that I enjoy listening to, just separate from the game. They're good enough to stand on their own, as
Right.
it were.
Yes.
And but in the context of the game, they set the mood, they set the tone,
Mhm.
and they are create a feeling within the player to do whatever it is that they want you to do.
Yeah.
And then like if and at times can provoke an emotional reaction.
Yes.
Now like these days the games, I'm mostly like a single player guy, and I like to play like these, you know, kind of like long drawn out resource management games like Civ and Frostpunk, and I also like to play these little bite-sized roguelike games like Enter the Gungeon and stuff like that.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Um, all 5 of these games are not in those genres, which should tell you how valuable the soundtrack was in getting me to like them so much.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so with all that out of the way, my number 5 here is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, good game.
So good.
So
right.
good.
Great pick.
Oh yeah.
This River City Ransom clone from, I want to say 2010 or thereabouts. Hugely just a loving recreation for those who, if you just saw the movie like I did at the time, or have read the graphic novels, which I did subsequently. Fantastic. Hit the tone exactly. The whole soundtrack was composed by the chiptune band Anamanaguchi. And I still listen. I still listen to this soundtrack to this day. The reason I have it at 5 and not higher is because it's there's not a whole lot of tone shifting in the game, and therefore the soundtrack. You know, it's just it's cool. It's great. It's arcade fun. It's retro. It's all that stuff. It's great, and that's kind of all it is. But the soundtrack is wonderful.
Right.
So take a step up to this game came out 4 or 5 years ago. Katana Zero.
Okay.
All right. If you haven't played this one, I recommend all these games. Katana Zero is it's sort of like disguised as a side-scrolling like slasher, I guess.
Gotcha.
But it's really, I think, a puzzle game.
Okay.
It's a puzzle game disguised as a side-scrolling beat 'em up, and it has a couple different artists collaborated on an original soundtrack, which is very stirring, really cool. It definitely has like lots of like synthwave nods in it.
Yes.
But kind of covers a couple of different genres in it. So there's a lot of dynamism to it. And as to the earlier point, just really focuses you, like nails the tone, and it focuses the player on the task at hand.
Mm-hmm.
And and like I listen to it all the time.
Love that.
Awesome.
Okay, number 3. This is going back a ways. Killer 7.
Oh, Killer 7. Yes.
Killer
Okay.
7. Okay.
You guys are familiar.
Yes.
I usually have to explain this.
Yeah. Oh no,
Japanese
that's
train
great.
For those
people.
who don't know, you can explain it to them.
Amazing.
I don't know. That's another Killer 7 is another one that would probably require like an additional 90 minutes to get through. Let's see, how can I tidily wrap this up?
Do the abridged version.
It is a shooter that is intentionally difficult to play. It intentionally sucks to play. It has but it did have like a really cool and revolutionary at the time. We're talking about like 2005, I think this game came out. Revolutionary cell shaded animation, rail-based shooter, and it's so weird. It's like if you like Alejandro Jodorowsky movies, I don't. But I love this game.
Yeah.
It was so weird. It was the first time I really it was the most narrative driven game I'd ever played at that time. And the music, which is mostly composed by Masafumi Takada, was amazingly all over the place genre wise.
Right.
But each song really suited the moment. And I know that they just issued a remaster on Steam, so perhaps it actually can be played today. This is one of those games that I'm just like, you guys don't understand how revolutionary this game was.
Right.
This game is my favorite game of all time. But like, I would never ask someone to play it because of how much it sucks compared to like gameplay wise, compared to like the things that are out nowadays.
Yeah,
but maybe it's got legs.
It's very restricted movement, and it makes me think of the Parasite Eve games, and going from Parasite Eve 1 to Parasite Eve 2, and how Parasite Eve 2 was a great game, but they changed the movement mechanics, and it made it feel very, very restrictive as compared to the first one. But that was a game I ended up playing, because of like Capcom, and I thought, oh well, this is something I'll try. And I'm not huge into first person shooters, but it was very weird, and it had like it had this weird vibe to it that like you had to play it.
That was the thing. It made you feel something that no game had made me feel before.
Yeah.
And that was just a go. And I know what you're saying about restriction, but Suda51, who designed Killer 7, went on to make another video game franchise, No More Heroes, and I was not as much of a stand for that, although I liked it. And I just tried to play the most recent one, and I was like, please God, why wasn't this on rails? Because it's trash. It's so bad. Don't bother. But that's the thing with Genius, is that like they're gonna hit it to the moon a couple times, and they are gonna absolutely like their crazy wired brain is gonna screw it up most of the rest of the time. So you just hang out for the home runs. So, all right, but Killer 7, if I don't know if Last FM is still a thing, but I'm probably still
I think it is.
the leading. I'm probably still the leading listener to the Killer 7 soundtrack.
Nice.
So number 2, Celeste.
Celeste.
You guys know Celeste?
I do know Celeste.
I want to say 2016.
Yeah, it was around that time.
9 years ago. Okay. It's a platformer. And a lot of these, by the way, are like sort of like graphically in sort of the 8 and 16 bit style retro, but most of the soundtracks are not. Most of the soundtracks are like much more modern and less restricted. Lena Raine composed the soundtrack, and it's number 2 because it hit all the things that I laid out as the criteria, more than any that I've already named. It gives me a lot. There's a lot of like emotional reactions that I have when I played that game for the first time. If you don't know what it is, it's a puzzle platformer. And the basic story is you're this Canadian young, like 20 something woman who is like going through some like mental health crises, and she's for her like self-care, therapeutic treatment, she's climbing this mountain. So that's what the game is. You're climbing a mountain. And and so it's an interesting, certainly an ambitious project. Make a puzzle platformer about mental health issues. But that
tough.
is a project like that is going to succeed or fail on the strength of its original soundtrack. And this game, which those genres I'm just not interested in, I was so driven to complete this game, which gets so hard at the end. I would have dropped, if this was any other game, I would have dropped it like a bad habit, because I just don't have time to like go through the same awful Mario Maker level like 50 times.
Right.
50 is calling it low, by the way. It was more like 300 times. But I was so emotionally invested in getting this girl to the top of this goddamn mountain. And I was like, she's going to get there.
So I'm getting to the top.
I'm getting fired from my job. I don't care. So it's a great game, and the soundtrack is absolutely beautiful. So that leaves us with number one.
Oh boy, here we go.
Undertale.
Oh, okay.
Undertale by Toby Fox. Toby Fox, he designed most of this game and all of the soundtrack. And this soundtrack is actually like entirely designed, not with exactly the restrictions, but very much in the style of like old 8-bit games. But you know what? Like there's a lot of bangers in there. There's a lot of songs that have become so loved that they've been meme-ified. And if you haven't played Undertale, this is a game that would particularly, I think, appeal to anyone of a certain age that remembers playing Final Fantasy games before 7 came out. Actually, you know what? Let's throw 7 in there too. The whole idea of like those old JRPGs was that you go to one area, you do a thing, you got to fight a boss, and in order to beat that boss, you have to be of a certain level, and to get to that level, you got to grind in this area. You got to wander around and for these like randomly triggering monster fights, kill the monsters, take the experience, do it again. Sometimes for hours. You would have to do this back in the old days when they had no respect for anybody's time or patience. And it was just this endless grind. And so Toby Fox kind of came up with this like idea of like imagine if these aren't just like repetitive tasks. Imagine if these were like actual characters that you had to like encounter. And is it possible? Is it possible to play a game like this where you don't absolutely have to hurt anything? You can, but you don't have to. And with this simple question, created a game that was, another one that's probably the closest thing to like another sort of quantum leap in terms of like what can a video game do that I personally experienced. And once again, soundtrack right in the middle of that. One of the most emotional responses I've ever had to a video game was a part of Undertale, which I will not spoil, because if you're watching this and you haven't played it and you like video games, you should definitely give it a try. I'm sure it costs like $7 on whatever play. It's on everything now. So so if you haven't, you should. So there's my 5, and I want to say, if I'm right, and this little top 5 segment garners a great deal of heat. This is not a comprehensive list. I don't claim to play every game that comes out. If there's something that I have not mentioned in the disclaimers, and I have not mentioned, and Streets of Rage. There you go. Danny's mad because Streets of Rage is not in here.
Is that what it is? I was going to ask you.
That's what it is.
Streets of Rage is not the one. That's wow. That was why I was like 8 and 16-bit games.
Right.
Wow. Jeez.
But because I was just like, all right, I'm just going to cut him off at the knees. I love the Streets of Rage soundtrack is great, but yeah, again, that's like all the 8 and 16-bit discussions for another time. But I would love to hear like you guys see my my Instagram crawling along down there. If there's something that you think I left out, or if there's something
do
that,
let him know.
I
Yes,
will
please.
happily engage on this topic, and I would love recommendations if there's something that I haven't played that you think I'd really enjoy because it has such a dope original soundtrack.
There you go.
All right. So I have a number of follow-up questions.
Okay.
Number one is a statement first. For me, Final Fantasy VII was just it. Like for me, that was everything. The emotional responses, the grand overtures, everything about it. And there is someone on YouTube that plays the entire Final Fantasy soundtrack from beginning to end on piano. And it's just one long. And I seriously used to put that on and just listen to it. So that's number one. Number two, I have a suggestion.
I want to quickly
for you.
address that. There was actually
okay.
one other caveat I forgot to mention, and that would be games I have not played through, which Final Fantasy VII is one of.
There you
go. Okay.
And
all right.
I would also put Transistor in that category for anybody who remembers that game.
Okay.
Continue.
So the other well, next is a recommendation. There was a game that came out on the original PlayStation. It's called Intelligent Cube.
Oh, okay.
It is a game where it's a strategy puzzle game where you have rows of blocks coming down towards you, and you have to run up and mark a square. And when the box falls on the square, you hit the button and the box goes away, and you have to get rid of all the boxes before they come down to the end and fall off the ledge. I'm telling you this, you can find this game out there now. PlayStation Store has it for PS4. Which you can get a PS5 version. It's amazing, but I'm telling you, you are going to love the soundtrack. Go listen to the soundtrack online.
Okay.
Even if you're not playing the game, you can find the soundtrack. It is incredible.
At the moment, I'm minus a PlayStation and a PC. I have an Xbox Series S and a Switch.
Okay, so that's.
But if I can't find this through either of those means, I will definitely check out the soundtrack.
Yeah, check out the soundtrack. It's very good. So that takes care of one question. Your current systems that you're playing.
Yeah. Right.
what current games are really kind of taking up your time right now?
So I feel like I'm starting to get into the point where like I think a lot of people do with music. They're very voracious about new music until they reach a certain age, and then they just want to play the stuff they like until they're dead. Now that's not true. I find myself going back and just like playing through old favorite games of mine a lot. But I do, and actually it's germane to this discussion. Balatro.
Oh my god, that game.
Okay.
Yo.
This is a Jesus Christ, what would you call this? A deck building.
I would call it
puzzle game.
It's like almost like a cross between like if you want to like if you're like gambling like not roulette.
It's poker with crazy rules.
It's poker with crazy rules, and it's poker where you get crazy blinds, small blinds, big blinds. You get and it gets just astronomical where you have to find out based on the
if you've ever played one of those old video poker machines that they probably still have in like key clubs, it's like take that and then feed it meth, and that's Balatro. And
that's a good way to play it.
It does have like it's kind of only got one song, I think, like, but it is
catchy.
It's so catchy. Like there's some guy this like jazz musician like did like a one-man multi-track cover of it on YouTube, and I have like the hour 10 hours of this version of it, which I would play at work all the time. It's some of my favorite focus music to play, but because it was just one song and it's it's meth poker.
Right.
I was like, it didn't quite crack the top 5, but you know what? Check back with me in a year or two.
There you go.
So Balatro and Shotgun King. That's another one.
Oh, that one's good too.
Yeah. Those are some of the recent new games that I've gotten that I love. But
Nice.
A lot of my time is going back to the old classics.
Yep.
Very cool. There was and this is one I always go back to. There was a Super Nintendo game called ActRaiser, and it is a cross between like world building simulator and then side scrolling adventure, because you would be building out your world, and you would be protecting them from different things, and then you would be like giving them resources. You were almost like a god to these people, and then when something big was coming to attack your land, you would come down in the form of a warrior, and it became a side-scrolling game where you would play the side-scrolling level, and once you defeated the boss at the end, then you would go back to world building.
I had heard the name ActRaiser a million times, but I never actually knew what that game was about. That actually sounds like something that would be up my alley. So
it's absolutely one of my favorites. Now, final question: what would you say is your favorite gaming system of all time?
Oh shoot! My timed lights came on. It's almost like it's time for me to leave. I got to pay my tab and get out of here. So I'm gonna leave the light on.
There you go.
My favorite
Motel
gaming
6
system of all time, dude. I don't know, man. Like,
it's a tough one.
The only one that I can really separate out from the pack is the good old gray lunchbox, the 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System.
There you go.
There's better, obviously. There's systems that perform better. Every year there's a new one that comes out better than the last one. And games that are great. But I don't know. For me, that was like that was my first love. And frankly, I think that what people were able to do, not just the soundtracks as we've been discussing, but the games themselves. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of terrible games on the NES, but the ones that were good enough to go back to, I still go back to and play.
Sure.
Yes.
So I guess I have to say that I might give I would probably give the SNES the nod if I had ever owned one.
Oh, okay. All right. I always go back to Blades of Steel. I'm like addicted to Blades of Steel.
I like to watch hockey, and sometimes I will just, if there's a lot of tic-tac-toe on the power play, I'm just like, hit the pass. That's
All
stuff
right.
my nightmares.
Yeah. Well, the video game soundtrack discussion is over. Great top 5, great video game discussion. And at this point, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about upcoming events with time traveler Deuce X Mai-na.
Yeah. Don't take money. Don't take fame. You don't need no credit card to ride around on the train. You're stronger than diamonds, stronger than steel. You won't feel nothing till you feel. You feel power. You feel power.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God, that cover of Huey Lewis is so good.
When I heard that, I was like, this is it.
Perfect.
So yes, so you can check out our episode from last week with Liam Black, which was a lot of fun. And then next week starts our Bell to Bell month with Gabby Ortiz, the first Diamond champion, and Sean will be on the Jericho Crew. So I will be joined by Missy Sampson as my guest host.
Yes.
So we will be talking to Gabby Ortiz. The following week, we'll be talking to Becca Wiley, and then just announced last night, not even up on YouTube yet, but 2 weeks after Becca Wiley, we will be talking to Big Daddy Adriana Mosley. To finish off Bell to Bell month. So definitely some great stuff on the channel there. Make sure you check that out. And now, some things to check out from Deuce X Mai-na. What do you got going on, buddy?
Well, there's just one thing on the horizon that I'm paying attention to, and that is Chivalry is Dead on February 15th at the Forest Lodge in Sellersville, Pennsylvania. You're going to get to see me in the aforementioned submission match, which will be a battle against my old rival Baron Mind. And you'll also see just a slew of other great matches featuring all of the variously talented wrestlers that we have at Royalty, and a couple of outside visitors too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's one.
Not sure all of whom have been announced.
One Big Dan is going to be in the house. We know about Big Dan and Havoc tagging up together. Gonna be a lot of fun. We will be in the house. We will be doing some interviews pre-show and covering the awesome action. We are super excited for.
Super pumped.
Royalty
I'm excited
Wrestling.
for that too. I think you guys are gonna fit in really well. And really enhance
well,
the experience.
Listen, I'm gonna fit in because I'm coming dressed up. I am. Listen, Coach Ralph told me that his goal is to get the audience to dress up. So, in the spirit of making that happen, I'm coming dressed. I'm going to be ready for the event. Yes.
All right.
Are
you gonna be clanking?
I might be. Yeah, you never know. That as they say from the 1600s, clanking and banking. So
there you go.
Who knows?
Oh yes, Lorenzo de Medici.
Yes,
right.
Yes, riding my horse down Venice Beach, clanking and banking.
Yeah.
All right. So again, make sure that you are liking the channel, subscribe, so you don't miss anything. Share us with your friends, and most importantly, follow Deuce X Mai-na on Instagram, where you will see everything that's going on with him, and you can debate his top 5 with him. He looks forward to that.
Please
engage.
And of course, make sure you get tickets to Chivalry is Dead, February 15th in Sellersville, PA. It's going to be a great show from Royalty Wrestling. Very exciting. So with that, that's going to wrap us up here. Deuce, we appreciate your time today. It was fantastic getting to talk to you, and we're super excited for the 15th, and we're super excited to see everything that you're doing.
All right. Well, you know what? It's been a pleasure talking to you guys, and look forward to seeing you at Chivalry is Dead. Also, the rest of you out there.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So for Deuce X Mai-na, for Parmesan, I'm King Ralph. This has been another episode of the Opinion City Podcast. And remember, kindness is free, so be kind to each other. God bless, and we will see you next time.